Hello, so we are now taking what we did in the first video for video notes 1 and connecting it into something that we did in the beginning of the school year. So that way we can see that sequences, when we have a pattern, we can make an equation and now we can turn that equation into a line. So one of the formulas that we did like last October is called the point slope form. So the point slope form says that we have y minus y1 equals m open parentheses, x minus x1. So in that last video, we had said that we had the equation an equals d n minus 1 plus a1. So if we take this slope-intercept form and I moved my y1 to the other side, then I would end up with y equals m x minus x1 plus y1. So if you notice the sequences formula, which told us any number in a sequence, so if I wanted to know the 10th number in a sequence or the 20th number in a pattern, I used this top formula here. Well, that's the same as this writing the equation of a line formula that we have here. The only difference is instead of calling it the common difference, we call it the slope. And in algebra, we use the letter m. Instead of saying 1, we use x1, which is the same, because in all of those tables in the first video, your first x value was a 1. And then instead of saying a1, which was the first y value of your table, we're using the phrase y1. So what we are going to do is we're going to use this version of the formula to be able to write the equation of a line. So let's do that with number 1, and then we're going to go back and remember how to graph a line. So what we have here is we have y equals, my m is the number m, so my m is a 2, open parentheses, x minus, here's my x1, it's the number 4, and then it says use plus y1, okay, plus y1 is the number 5. So this is the equation. It looks very similar to what we did in video 1. So now we're going to simplify it, though, to make it look nice and neat. So this becomes y equals 2x minus 8 plus 5. So now we have something called like terms. These here are called like terms. So that's y equals 2x minus 3. So we got rid of parentheses, and we combined like terms. So now this equation, y equals mx plus b, is what we use all year to graph a line. So to graph a line, let's refresh your memory here. Look at that, it's the same number. How funny is that? That was not intentional. Okay, so let's remember how to graph a line. So to graph a line, what we have is called a y-intercept. That's the number that's by itself without an x. This one is -3, so we're gonna put a dot on -3. Then the number with x is called your slope. It always has to be a fraction because the top number tells you to rise over run, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, 2 over 1, and then we can connect our dots. So that's how we graph a line. We take, once y is by itself, we take our y-intercept, which is the number in the back. So we start at -3, and then we move it with the slope. So up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. Okay, so on your paper, remember, we need you to write down numbers 1 through 6. So in number 1, we wrote the equation using this formula here, which we used connected from video notes 1. So now we just need to graph it. So on your paper, you can just graph a picture of a coordinate plane. It's okay if it's not perfect. You can just do some tally marks. So to graph this line, we start at the y-intercept. This y-intercept is -3. Then you graph from a slope, up 2 over 1, 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 2 over 1, 2 over 1. And then we connect our dots. Okay, so make sure you write down number 1. So we have an equation of a line. We wrote the equation and then we graphed the line. Okay, so now I want you to try number 2. So for number 2, we're going to use this formula here, which is basically our point slope formula. And we're going to plug in our pieces. I'll help you out with number 2 to start you off. Y equals. Every equation when we're graphing lines has to be in the form y equals. M is what we're moving. So it's a 2. m is 2. X stays. So in this formula, the letters y and the letter x will stay in your formula all the way to the end. So we have a slope, open parentheses, x minus x1. It's right here. It's 3. Then it says plus y1, okay? Plus y1 is 7. So now on your own, I want you to clean this up by distributing and combining your constants, combine like terms. So you're going to end up with an equation that looks like y equals something x plus something. Then you're going to graph that line. Graph on the y-intercept first. All right, so let's move on to number 3. So in number 3, we're using the same thing. So for today, we're using the formula. It's just like the point slope formula. The only difference is that we put the y1 in the back to make it look like what we did in video notes 1. So that formula is y equals m. Then we take our x minus our first x value plus our y1. Okay, so in this one here, it's y equals. Instead of m, it tells us that m is 1/2. Open parentheses, x minus. Instead of x, it says that x is 6. And then plus y1. My y value is 4. If it helps you, you can label that this is your x1 and this is your y1. Easy. So we just plugged in the slope and we plugged in the point. So now to graph the line, I need to get y by itself and to clean up the right side. So y equals 1/2 x. Half of 6 is the number 3. There's a minus sign there. And then in the back it says plus 4. So my last step to clean this up, y equals 1/2 x. Negative 3 and 4 are called like terms. So negative 3 plus 4 is the number positive 1. So now that y is by itself, and we have no parentheses and no more like terms to clean up, we can graph this line. To graph a line, you start with a constant. This one is the number 1. And we're going to rise over run. So we're going to go up 1 over 2. Up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2. Same thing, down 1 over 2, down 1 over 2. Okay, so here's my line. So I want you to try the exact same thing with number 4. So again, we're using this formula, plugging in the pieces. Here is your m, here is your x1, here is your y1. Plug in your pieces and graph your line. Okay, number 5, the last one that I'm going to do with you. Then you do 6, and then you're done with your work for this week. Not too difficult at all. So in this one here, again, x1, y1. So to write the equation of a line, we have y equals, instead of m is negative 2, x minus my first x value, and then my y value is just minus 1. So I plug this into the formula. So now I'm going to distribute. So y equals negative 2x. Negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6. And there's a minus 1 in the back. So then I combine like terms. 6 minus 1 is the number 5. So my equation is y equals negative 2x plus 5. So I'm going to graph that line by starting at the y-intercept. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now my slope. I'm going to drop down 2 and over 1. Down 2, 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 over 1. And then connect your dots. Okay, so that's how we graph a line from a point and a slope. We write the equation of a line using this formula. We get y by itself, clean up the right side, and we can graph a line. Okay, so try number 6, and number 6 is the last one that you have to do for today. So you're writing the equation of the line, getting y nice and cleaned up, and then graphing. Okay, so that is it for video notes 2. Have a wonderful week. We will resume in video notes week 7. Have a wonderful day. We will talk to you all soon.